Hello everyone, welcome back to my Florist YouTube channel. It's Alexis here. Today we're going to be doing a day in my life video. We're going to be going through a morning at the flower shop. It's a Monday morning in July. It's not too busy this week. So what I like to do is just start by printing the orders for the next 2 days just so I can get a head start on things. My coworker Carolyn is adding the finishing touches to this red and white Polish funeral. As a retail florist working at a flower shop, we do a lot of funerals for the funeral homes in our small town area. So because there aren't a ton of orders today, I'm going to spend some time cleaning out this cooler. This cooler hasn't been cleaned in like 2 weeks. There's a ton of stuff, there's random food, there's like half dead flowers. So we're going to go through this and make sure that this looks a lot better. I'm going to start with these unprocessed flowers that I found in the back cooler. There's just a couple of boxes, so I'm just going to start by fully processing these flowers. We're going to want to get these in water as soon as possible because they haven't had water all weekend. So I'm going to give you guys a quick lesson on how to fully process, clean, and prepare your roses for vases. The variety name of these roses can be found on the front of the pack, but sometimes it can be found on the inside. The packs of roses roll out like a book. So you're just going to find that seam, cut along the seam to remove all of the tape, and then you're just going to want to roll out those roses, nice and easy. Make sure you cut and remove all those rubber bands. Next, you're going to take your rose stripping tool. This is my favorite tool by far, and I have this linked on my Amazon storefront. The goal here is to remove all of the leaves and thorns from the rose stem. This is just going to make the grab and go process that much easier. You're not going to have to worry about pricking your hand as you grab your rose. Now there is a technique to this. In one hand, you're going to hold the rose stem straight, and with the other hand, you're going to use the rose stripper and you're just going to move your way down the stem, knocking off all the leaves and thorns. Take your time with this. You want to make sure you are really knocking off all of those thorns and leaves. We're also going to be removing all of the guard petals from the roses, so any brown rotting petals that you see on the rose, you're just going to want to pull those off from the base of the rose. Now you're just going to repeat that process for all of the roses. This can be a little time consuming, especially during the holiday season like Valentine's Day when you're processing like thousands of roses, but in the end, this is definitely worth it and it'll just make the grab and go process that much easier. Now, like I said, guys, these flowers haven't been in any water all weekend. So we're going to want to chop and drop these flowers into some fresh water as soon as possible. Me personally, I don't put any bleach or any flower feed in the water. Just fresh, clean water for the flowers to sit in is just enough for me. When you're chopping your flowers, you're going to want to cut off just a teeny tiny bit because you want your flowers to be as long as possible. Place your flowers in a bucket of water as soon as possible so that way the stems can absorb the water and start to drink. Now I'm just going to repeat this same process for all of the roses that you see here. The thing about processing, conditioning, cleaning flowers is that each flower is a little bit different. Each flower is cared for, processed, and handled a little bit differently than the last. We are now going to be processing a different type of flower called Monte Cassino. Just like the roses, you're going to want to remove all of the plastic and the rubber bands from the flowers. Solidago is the next type of flower that I'm grabbing here, and you pretty much process this the same way you would Monty. I forgot to fill up my buckets of water beforehand, but I recommend that you, as a florist, fill up as many buckets as you can with water so that way when it's come time to process, you can just chop and drop your flowers and make it a lot easier. Now guys, I work at a busy flower shop. That means I get redirected a lot and I often are doing one task and then I gotta stop and jump and do another task. So right now I am making an all white arrangement with pops of green and blue. This arrangement is actually for, and you guessed it, another funeral. I told you guys I wasn't kidding when I said we do a lot of funerals. If you're looking for a full flower tutorial, I recommend watching these videos that I have pinned in my description box. And there you have it, guys. Here she is, all finished. So we had two funeral arrangements to do that day. So right after doing the first one, I decided to just knock out and do the second one. These next two flower arrangements are going to be red and white rose heavy, with just like a couple accent flowers to fill in the gaps. To make these arrangements, I used a dozen roses as the base, and then I just filled in the gaps in between the roses with different types of flowers like daisies, monty, hydrangea, things like that. If you want to learn how to make a dozen roses in a vase look beautiful, I recommend checking out these two tutorials. I already have these up on my channel, so you can watch these right away. And now back to processing because, I was interrupted, so now I gotta get back to the first task. There was a poll done back in 2022 that asked people what their favorite flower was, and believe it or not, hydrangea was actually people's favorite flower back in 2022. I think it's because it comes in so many beautiful different colors and varieties. When processing hydrangea, it's important to remove all of the big green leaves. These leaves will drink up all of the water and prevent the flower from actually blooming beautifully. So you want to make sure to pull and snip all of those leaves off. Before you place your hydrangea into the fresh bucket of water, you want to make sure you snip right above the water bag so that way your hydrangea is getting that fresh water. Now for the snapdragons. Snapdragons are actually my least favorite line flower to work with because snapdragons snap, and they snap so easily. When processing snapdragons, you want to make sure you hold the flower in two hands. You're going to hold one hand at the top of the stem to just give it support, and the other hand is going to drag down the stem of the flower. This is going to remove all of the leaves and debris from the stem. Leaves cause mold and bacteria in the water, so if you are ever working with flowers, make sure to always remove all the leaves from the stems to prevent this from happening. When you are working with chrysanthemums like these, it's important to keep the nets on the flowers. This is going to help protect the flower itself. These flowers are very delicate, and I find that it's just easier to remove the nets when you're ready to work with them, but until then, just keep the nets on to help give it that extra layer of protection. And just like the snapdragons, you're just going to be removing all of those leaves from the stem. Now that all the flowers are cleaned and processed, it's time to actually clean the cooler itself. My favorite thing in the whole wide world is being able to open the cooler door and just grab the flowers I need without having to sit there for a couple minutes and shifting through old buckets of flowers. It's nice to just be able to grab and go. Something I don't think people realize is that being a florist, you actually have to do a lot of heavy lifting. I've been lifting buckets, bringing them back and forth from one place to another all day. So you definitely need to make sure that you are working out and staying in shape because, guys, when I tell you, my arms are killing me. There were a bunch of buckets in the cooler that just had like assorted mismatched flowers in them. And me, I like it when there are one type of flower in one bucket and another type of flower in another bucket. So for me, I'm just going to go through all these buckets and sort these flowers out one by one and put them in the respective bucket that they all belong in. Not all flowers live and do well with others, so whenever I'm processing flowers, it's important to separate each flower by each variety into each different bucket. So in one bucket, I'm going to have daisies, in another bucket, I'm going to have snapdragons, in another bucket, I'm going to have roses. This is just one way I like to keep organized. When it comes time to ordering flowers, it makes it very easy to see what we have and don't have. There's always a ton of boxes left over from the flowers when we're done processing, so I always just like to flatten these. It just makes them easier to store in our trash cans and they just take up a lot less space this way. Now, after a long day of cleaning and processing, I always like to just give my area a quick sanity sweep. I like to just make sure I have a clean area and a nice workspace. I hope you guys enjoyed spending the morning with me here at the flower shop. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel so I make more videos like this. Follow me on Instagram at flowersbyalexis, and I will see you all soon with another video. Bye!